if you think about it, the musical scale. Excuse me. Whoa. I lost the... Let's see. Let's get the hair from a couple of different views here. I don't like the way it looks, but I wanted to just see if there's some angles that are better than other angles with the camera, you know, if I'm making... Because I'm thinking about actually trying to make the movie out of this novel I'm writing about Madison and her friends at Beloit, and actually like reconstructing those scenes where Lincoln visited Beloit and where he came to the land there prior, around 1832. And I think it would be a really interesting project to do with some of the Beloit students as a kind of philosophical novel. So I probably could get some of them interested, but it might require Madison X might be graduating in 2016 if she started in 2012. The debutante also, if she was a freshman in 2012, then she might be, and maybe that level of excitement that she had for that dance and dressing up indicates that she was a freshman. You know, she came to the campus and she's like, this is one of the major events. I'm going to have to dress up for the occasion. And maybe then maybe then she can play herself, but then she'll have to take on a new name. She'll have to take on one of the names that I assigned to her, like Cato or Blanche or Kate or Georgia. But maybe she'll say, I don't like those names. I like some other name. I want to be some other name. I don't want to be those names. Those names you chose I don't like. So, like it as an artist, you can't win. You know, if you start with what's real in the world, and then you decide to fictionalize it, then if you meet with the real thing, the real person will say, "That's not me. Were you crazy?" But if you start completely fictionally, people go, "Oh, so you're the kind of person who just likes to imagine stuff." I dare any student, you know, in the university or any student who has access to these kinds of things, maybe that has a little more success with technology than I do, partly because of my own ignorance and not wanting to learn about it. I want to just study. I just want to read that book down there and learn about that stuff. I don't want to learn all the modes of my tablet. But if I knew all the modes of my tablet, I could start filming. I could start filming the novel, you know. But that also requires transportation. So if I were doing it with somebody, I'd have to, you know, I would have to have some transportation to do it. But I think filmmaking today. I saw a book once called Philosophy Through Literature, and I think that was a good idea, and that still is a good idea, to use literature to illustrate philosophical ideas, because people can identify with characters in a novel. Whereas to identify with a philosopher like Plato, it's harder today. I discussed this with my dear friend the other day on the phone, and I talked to her about a friend of ours who's trying to work on a MA thesis. But his bachelor's degree, his 4-year degree, if we get sophisticated, we call it the baccalaureate. But the bachelor's degree that he has is in fine art. And for a number of years, it has been taught that Plato's dialogues were read in Athens when they first came about. And they were read, I speculated in one of my videos, because they were a new form of art that Plato was counterposing to the tragedians and the comedians of his time, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes. And so he was trying to create this new form of art that the Athenians could participate in, like they did the religious festivals of the past with poets. And he was also trying to create a form of art that was not sophistry. See, so there were sophists and traveling teachers in Athens who would come to Athens, and they had these enormous abilities, like they could make their own clothes, they could teach people how to publicly speak and do well in the assembly and do well politically, and so on. And so Plato was trying to oppose them and show that philosophy, or the concern with truth, is actually deeper and more important than merely sophistry, which is a lack of concern with the truth, as you will learn from Leo Strauss's Natural Right and History if you learn it, or if you read it and learn it. You'll learn that he shows that the sophists were not concerned with the truth, but the philosophers were concerned with the truth, and so they often, at first, the original philosophers, Parmenides and others, they might not have done as well as the sophists because they were not political. See, they were not concerned with their political existence. They were concerned with sitting around and contemplating the truth. There's a famous story about Archimedes and how he was contemplating his geometric figures in the sand as the island that he was on got invaded, and he was murdered while he was doing that. Now, it's a scary story about math, basically, if you want to boil it down. It's like, it's a story that scares people who do math. It scares people who would write a geometric figure in something and begin thinking about it. But it's also it also indicates something of the truth, that politics is often quite indifferent to the creations of people who are concerned with getting to the truth of things. Now, politics today is not so much that way. If those people who own the means of production or the productive resources of a society come to realize that somebody has something important, an important invention that they're working on, and that it can help them in some way, but here's the key: it has to convince them that it's genuinely an invention, and it's an invention that can help them make money. Because for practical men, like Senator Rockefeller's father's father, in his time, he was more generous toward those people who could invent things, because in that time there was a greater sociality. So it was kind of like if you met somebody at a party or something, or he met someone at a party or he might have even gone to those dances I spoke about in the past in his own community. Dancing might have been an important form of socializing for him. And so he was often talking to people and meeting people who worked for the companies that he had or wanted to, and he would sometimes learn that they had skills in something. Maybe they had skills in studying physics or something, and then he would actually co-opt them and say, hey, can you work for this company, or can you help organize knowledge here or there? And then I think that maybe then his father, became a little bit more powerful, and then you become more powerful, and then you have a lot of resources, and you become more skeptical. And so you're more skeptical, like, can anybody really help me today? Because I've got so many people who could work in these areas, and so many really good ones. And that's another thing. So many extraordinary talents in every kind of field can be co-opted for a project. In my view, I have in view the project of furthering the knowledge of nature and furthering the knowledge of astronomy, while admitting that I'm only a philosopher of science, but sometimes a philosopher of science, or somebody that's not a physicist, can nevertheless see talent in physics and can nevertheless understand enough about the basic issues in a science to be able to say, I with others could compose a great symphony of physics. See, that where those people who would be doing such a project would be dedicating themselves to what they do best, to working out the equations in physics. But it might take a talent. I hate to say I'm talented at, because there's so many things that I'm not talented at. But one of the things that I am talented at is seeing talent. It's one of the things I'm good at. And I don't brag about it, but I think that what's required is that somebody have a knowledge of what is questions, what is geology, what is geophysics, what is particle physics, what is astronomy, what is cosmology, What is nuclear physics? What is subnuclear physics? What is the electron? What is the positron? What is a spiral galaxy? What is a neutron star? You know, things like that. If you know of things like that, and you know a lot of names, like you're like me, and if you read a book or you hear about a book, you remember almost all of them, then you can kind of see how they can be woven together to produce greater knowledge, or to organize knowledge in a better way. And so this is something that I do consider myself to have talent in. And so I was, of course, being a bit facetious, or a bit, I was joking to a degree. I was making fun of myself to a degree when I said I could be the chief executive officer or chief financial officer of GE, but I was being completely serious when I said that I could work for a corporation like that as a private individual, like in consulting, if somebody like J. Rockefeller said, I want to invest a little bit of my money in this idea of getting together the right physicists and making something like dotting the I's and crossing the T's in physics today, so we have yet more knowledge. See, now does that mean some Prometheus like Jeff Newsel is going to like write every equation and do all that work himself? No, it does not. It means that like Jack, who's the head of General Electric, or like it used to be, it might have been a female who was the head of Hewlett Packard. They make calculators, and they like business machines and all kinds of things, all kinds of technological stuff. But it means that like that person, if I were in a room full of physicists, and I would be able to talk to them and bring them together and saying, hey, you do this kind of work in physics, and you do this kind of work in physics. Have you two ever thought about working together on something that's common? For example, there is a physicist by the name of Alan Dressler, and he has done researches in astronomy where he has found a group of galaxies that he calls the Great Attractor. And in those galaxies, he sees that matter in those galaxies, all the matter of the universe ever since the Hubble telescope, there was a discovery that the galaxies are moving away from each other. But Alan Dressler, in the Great Attractor, he realized that there's a group of galaxies in the cosmos today that appear to be bringing matter closer together. So they appear to be in violation of the very law that most astronomers have observed, that all the galaxies are almost uniformly moving away from each other. So that kind of knowledge might have some relationship to another physicist by the name of Lee Smolin, who has an idea that when the cosmos creates parts of itself, or even when it came into being, that it came into being through a process where black holes in the cosmos actually recreate parts of the cosmos, or even the whole cosmos. So Lee Smolin might say one of the possible interpretations that you can give to that is that the whole cosmos is a black hole, which is what another physicist, Ernest J. Sternglass, discovered in about 50 years of working on a theory of just two tiny little particles, trillionths of an inch in diameter, which he thinks move so vigorously and actively around each other that they spun out the whole fabric of everything that we see in the heavens. And so we're trying to get them to work together and further the theories of knowledge in science. Now that job, it required public speaking. It would require getting people together and saying, hey, can you work together? Can you work with this person on this project? Can you help this person on this project? This is what we need done. And that I think I can do.